Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so as we wait for this meeting between Putin and Trump, besides the continuing, Russian advance, I'm going to make a video a little bit different this time. All the good reasons to move to Russia. As I'm moving around the city today, so. Reason number one. Well, there's in no particular order. But reason number one, you see behind me? That's a bus station. Public transportation in Russia is everywhere. I mean, you have to live in such a remote village that doesn't get at least a bus once a day coming through, twice a day. Most villages will have a bus maybe once an hour coming through, take you to the bigger cities or take you to the next villages over and whatever. In the cities, you've got buses coming every 10 minutes. It may be not the bus you're looking for, and maybe that one may only come once every half an hour, but they come constantly. So, there's number one. Great public transportation. In the cities, you don't need a car to get around. Reason number two, the education system. I'm going to compare it to the U.S. education system. Last year, the U.S. had an effective illiteracy rate of 21%. That's people reading at third grade level or lower. Third grade level in the U.S. is about ending a first grade level in Russia. Another 32% read between a third grade level and a sixth grade level. That's between like first grade and fourth grade level in Russia. The education system you get at a public school is on par with what in the U.S. you'd pay $1,000 to $3,000 a month for a private school. In fact, private schools in Russia are for only two types of people. Expats that don't want their kids learning Russian, and I prefer them learning at the American program, so being dumbed down and paying giant money for it, or English program and paying something like 50,000 pounds a year from kindergarten up. I shit you not. I mean, this is realistically what they are paying. Kids of oligarchs are usually either too dumb to get into regular good public schools or being prepped to move overseas. Well, have fun and good riddance. That's their entire goal in life. So yeah, Russia has an extremely good education system. Universities, some are paid for, some are positions are government budget. I mean, it is a pretty good competition to get on budgeted positions. I won't kid you, but it's so much cheaper than going the U.S. route. And here's reason number three: quality of life in the Russian cities. Unlike a lot of Western cities, Russia has a huge amount of parks, playgrounds for children, all over the city. There's even this concept of Park, forest park. Not just these land shaft parks, but parks are just basically a forest or forests in the middle of the city. So you see major highways right here in Moscow, and this park. Just a place for people to relax, and they're everywhere. So you come out of work, a lot of times you don't have to go too far. You hit a park, a lunch break, go sit down somewhere more or less quiet. You can't totally get away from sound of the cars, but still, you can relax. The churches are nearby, it's all peaceful, re-energized. Reason number four. Yes, there you go. Columbus, Georgia, USA. But you know the difference between RC Cola here? That I'm not quite sure where it's being made in this case, because it's not being made in America, and I'll tell you why. The difference between the food in Russia. There's reason number four: the food in Russia and the food in the U.S. American food, if anybody has any intelligence and actually reads the labels and tries to figure out what's written on those labels, is poison. It's poison. There's no other way to say that. It is poison. Here, for example, on this cola, if you can see it, it's in Russian. But the ingredients in this cola, for example, are sugar. Yes, I know sugar isn't the best thing for you, but it's sugar. It's not corn syrup. You see, it's not corn syrup. It's not a lot of these other chemicals. And if certain chemicals are used, they're labeled as an E, as an additive. E, like the first 120 E's, you can look them up. There'll be an E and a number. You can look them up, what they are on the internet. Very easy. You don't have to have the whole chemical name. And first, like 120 are natural, and after that are man-made additives. GMO foods are banned. You cannot grow GMO crops in Russia. Banned by law. Has been for over 10 years. Food is natural, much more natural. Even the processed food is much more natural. It's amazing. You can actually make jam with just a few ingredients. And the same thing with bread. And yes, no corn sugar. Or syrup, I'm sorry, no corn syrup. Unlike the US where they put corn syrup into everything, it goes twice through your liver, so it really puts a lot of pressure on your liver. So there you go. Which will lead us into point number 5. And by the way, what do you notice about these parks? No trash, no vagabonds, no hoods trying to steal, trying to hustle something, trying to assault people. Calm. Hey, you don't see cops everywhere, do you? No, you don't. Why? Because you don't have to. That's another thing about police in Russia. You know, when the police arrive at your house in the US, for whatever reason, you called them for some reason or what have you, and they've come over, they're trying to get into your house. They're trying to look into your house. They're trying to get invited in or let in. They're like vampires. Let me in! Let me in! Can I come in your front door? Why? Because they're looking for what they can arrest you for. These, by the way, are astronauts. Twice decorated heroes of the Soviet Union. Because there you go. Over there is the Aeronautical Museum, or the Space Museum. So yeah, any cop in the U.S. is definitely not your friend for the most part. They're looking to fill quotas. They're looking for any reason to confiscate your property. They're looking for reasons to arrest you. In Russia, without a court order, they can't go into your house unless they actually see a crime taking place on the spot. They can't go in. Absolutely not. Even if you invite them in, they won't go in. That's a huge difference. You walk up to a cop in Russia and ask them some questions, they'll be helpful. They'll help you out. You don't have that fear. You see cops in the U.S. like, even if you're not doing anything, you go, and it's not just blacks that have to fear that. Everybody fears that. That's the reality of it. I mean, that's really the reality of it. There's most people with half a brain fear the police in the U.S. because they're enforcers. They're out to confiscate. They're out to arrest. They're out to make their quotas. That's your solar system right there. That's a sun clock. There you go. Yep. That's Saturn, if you don't understand. And that's the Earth. That's the Earth. See, and that's where we're at. Right there. That's right. And that's all our land now too. Right there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you don't know history or geography, right there. So, where were we? And that's Venus. Yep, that's Venus. Where's Mercury? Mercury. Oh, there's Mercury. There's Mercury. And there's Mars. Where shall we guess that Mr. Musk is gonna drop his colony at? Where shall Mr. Musk drop his colony? we'll have to come back to that later. Maybe put a little mark when Musk actually gets to Mars, or sends somebody to Mars. Hopefully not on a one-way trip. So anyways, where were we? Medical. Reason number 5. Now, you're already eating better. Your stress level is lower because you have parks. You're not afraid of police. The po-po's coming to get you. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? When they're not coming for you. So there you go. So your blood pressure is lower. You have more breathing space. And you're not worried about getting sick. Well, not as much. Everybody worries about it to some degree. By the way, under Russian law, all your legal employers have to give you a paid day once a year to go get a prophylactic done on you. So basically a medical exam. In Russia it's called profilaktika, where you go get checked out. Blood pressure, proteins in your blood, and so on and so on and so on. And that's all covered under government insurance. Because you have a 2-tier insurance policy. You have government medical coverage, which is not always the best, but it's better than absolutely nothing. And in the big cities, it's actually pretty damn good. And you have private clinics. And the interesting thing about private clinics, you can get in there faster. Sometimes you get better doctors, sometimes you don't. Depends on the clinic. You got to figure that out yourself. But the good thing about the private clinics is they're so cheap. How cheap are they, Stas? They are so cheap that you don't even need to get insurance to cover them. Why? Because unless you're chronically ill, and seriously chronically ill, you won't pay off that insurance by what you need to pay for these private clinics. Look, I had in February, I had a hemorrhoid removal. Yeah, a little gift from the army. Should have done it a long time ago. But anyways, so had this hemorrhoid removal, went to a private clinic, so all the medical checkups before, anesthetic operation. I laid in the recovery for about 8 or 9 hours till everything wore off, until I was ready to go, including the medical checkups after, which was about 5 of them. All came out about $1,500 out of pocket. This is a private medical clinic. I could have gone to a public one. It would have been a bit of a longer wait, but I then would have had to spend a week in the hospital, which I didn't have to do it this time because I could go right home. There was no order to have to stay in the hospital. I could go home and recover there. I know, the wind started blowing, and I'm sorry, I forgot my microphone. I was running errands, and that's just how it happened. So, forgive me. Forgive me for that, but that's just how it turned out. So, yeah. So, $1,500. I had, a chest x-ray done. I had bronchitis 2 years ago. I paid like $15 for it on a brand new Simmons machine. Or was it a Philips machine? Whichever, doesn't really matter. Chest x-ray for $15. Yeah, the wind's picking up. Looks like there's a thunderstorm coming this way. So, medical is covered once you get residency. So you move over to Russia, you file for temporary residency. Once you get temporary residency, I'm not even talking permanent residency, just temporary residency. 3 years that if you're from the list of 42 naughty nations, you don't have to learn Russian. You get that, you get covered by medical insurance, government medical insurance, that's right. And you can, when you call a ambulance always comes with a doctor. That's right. Round the clock, anytime you want, you call the ambulance comes with a doctor. And it's free. Yeah. Fit that one into your brain bucket. It's free. It's not like in the U.S. where the ambulance comes and God forbid they have to take you somewhere because they don't have a doctor. They just have a couple felchers or medics. And they have to take you somewhere That's going to run you anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 to $6,000, $7,000. That's bankruptcy for almost any American. All right to the aimless. These are just a dying place. Or get behind the car and hope you don't crash somewhere if you can't find somebody to drive you. That's right. Compare the difference. Feel the difference. Live the difference. That's the reality of it. I mean, that's just reality, folks. You know, and as an employee, if you're working as a fully contracted employee, there's another difference. You have certain rights. You can't just be fired on the spot. They can fire you, but they have to give you a warning letter, one, work out a plan with you for you to improve, and write another warning letter. After that, they can fire you if you continue not to perform. But then you can go to labor board, and you can argue that. Unlike in the U.S., where you now that you've lost your job, you also have to hire a lawyer for $200, $300, $400 an hour, and then go argue your case, which everybody knows is ludicrous. There's no way you can do it. The only way you can get somebody fired, terminated, is if you terminate the position, and then you can't reinstate that position for half a year. So if you are a business owner and you're liquidating a plant or something, you can terminate people that way. So business does have flexibility it doesn't have in France and other places, where basically if you hire somebody, you're hiring a relative for life because you can't fire them. It's near impossible to get somebody fired. But it's not like the U.S. where I didn't like the shoes you wore today, so you're fired. Get out. And I'll walk you out like a criminal too. Won't even let you get your things. So there's a big plus right there. And Russia needs trade jobs. I cannot emphasize that enough. The economy is booming. Yes, the conflict with NATO has taken a certain a small chunk of manpower out of the market. That's absolutely true. But the most that you need, okay, I'm going to be honest about it. I mean, if you're an engineer and you don't speak Russian, it's one thing if you're IT or a programmer, you know, it's because more likely most of the others speak English, because IT is like that. But if you're a mechanical engineer or an electrical engineer, you're going to have problems. You're going to have problems without Russian. Trade jobs, not so much, because you can figure that out on your fingers, you know. I understand what needs to be painted, where the plumbing needs to go, and so on. And I'll give you an example. One of my close friends, he has a contract to refurbish a whole network of banks for a federal level company, bank corporation. So he's got 100+ branches he needs to refurbish. He needs a painter. He's been looking for a painter for 3 months. He hired one. He needs to hire another one. And he's paying up to 150,000 rubles. It's about $2,000 a month. When you, by the way, have a 13% flat income tax. It's 13% flat unless you're making over, I think it was about $400,000, $350,000. At which pay you start to pay a higher interest rate at 16% on the money above that minimum amount. If you're self-employed or you're a small businessman and you have less than, I think, about 10 or 15 employees, and you're earning under $1 million, it's 6%. Let that sink in. It's 6%. So if you're a contractor, consultant like myself, or you're a consultant contractor programmer, it's 6%. Yeah, try to figure that one out. U.S. it's between 30 to 45. You get countries like Finland, which is the other extreme of insanity. It's 64 plus VAT and everything else. or VAT is, for those who don't understand, it's like a sales tax, except it's added on at every level of processing or manufacturing. So yeah, think about that. Think about that. How much better you can live here than you can live there. I mean, don't be under illusions. There are hurdles you'll have to jump across, getting your paperwork in, and the more you prepare before, the better. You will need to learn Russian. Waiting, you get 3 years on the temporary visa, and then you have to be on a permanent visa, or you get 3 years on temporary residency, and you have to be, then you have to go to permanent residency, at which point you do have to pass a Russian exam. But for that, Russian is a difficult language. I'm not gonna BS you on that. It is a difficult language, and holding off and waiting till 2 years in, and then you have to. By the way, it's not that 3 years are up and now I'm put in for a permanent residency. No, 3 years are up, it's over. So before those 3 years are up, you have to get a permanent residency. You have to have the paperwork in at least and have a date when it's being issued. So basically, you need to start doing this at. You start taking the exam at 2.5 years in. 2.5 years. So for those that think, I'm going to wait to 2 years and I'm going to learn Russian in a year, no, you're not. Not at the level you need to do the exam. And those that think, oh, I can still buy that exam, you're really running a thin line there. While I can't say it's not being done, the punishments are pretty strict. First of all, for the people that do it, it can be up to, I think, 10 years in imprisonment and millions of rubles in fees. And if you are caught buying a Russian exam instead of actually doing it, до свидания, for good. You're not going to be allowed back in the country. So I don't advise it. I advise the moment, and better yet, even before you land, to start learning Russian. It's just so you don't have to have Russian to be able to stay in Russia now. If you're from one of the 42 naughty nations. I like my name for that list, naughty nations. So you can go earlier and put in, for exam, while you're still learning Russian, instead of having to take other people having to pass the exam beforehand. But yeah, okay, so just keep that in mind. In 2.5 years, you should learn Russian to the level you need to get the permanent residency. And when you're going for citizenship, you have to take another Russian exam at a much higher level. But then again, you could technically always, the rest of your life, stay on the permanent residency and not bother getting citizenship. But if I'll give you this, and I keep seeing this from a lot of Americans as they post this, and not only Americans, British too. We're expats in Russia. We've come to a new land and we're going to stay here. Then you're not expats, my dear friend. You're immigrants. And there's a key difference in those two words. Because if you're an expat, you're not here to stay. You're here for whatever period of time, a year, 2 years, 5 years, what have you. You're here to earn some money, live it up for a while, and then you leave. That's what an expat is. If you're an immigrant, you've tied your future to the country you're moving to. And there's a key difference in psychology. Because an immigrant knows that, okay, those bridges are more likely burnt, the ship sunk like the Mayflower. I'm here to stay, and what do I need to do to not only fit in, but to be a success? While an expat is here to screw around, takes everything loosely, and because he's got that back door. If things don't work out, I'll leave. So there's a different level of pressure, a different level of commitment. But if you're moving here and you're planning to stay, don't even start talking about yourself as an expat. You are an immigrant. That's like your ancestors, or maybe your parents, were immigrants in the other direction. But they said, screw this. Life isn't getting any better in the country we're in. We're not going to change it. And one person is not going to change it against the entire system the size of the U.S. government, for example, and the oligarchs in the U.S. who run and rule the U.S. government. You're not going to change anything by one man. You can fool yourself, you can try something, you can watch yourself be crushed. There's hundreds, if not thousands upon thousands of examples of that happening. So you can stick around and go down with the ship and take your kids with you. Or you can decide, you know, I need a better level of life. I need a better level of balance of life. And I want my children to have a future. Not a future as chattel slavery in the modern version, where they're in debt for the rest of their lives before they even start their lives. Look at education, for example. Or God forbid, one medical emergency and we're all going down into living on the street, living in cardboard boxes, or living in our car until the cops arrest us and take the car away too. I'll never forget a video I saw from Florida where homeless families have bought tents. They're on the edge of the city in the lot. So this is sleeping bags and tents. It's the last things these people own, right? They've lost their homes, they lost their jobs, mass unemployment, they lost their jobs, they lost their homes. And the police, looking at these people who are their former neighbors, come in there with knives and cut it all up. Go die off in the swamps or in the forest somewhere. Just don't live here where we can see you. And if you think the police are ever going to be on your side, especially in places like the U.S., no. They're going to be on the side of those who pay their bills. I don't think otherwise. A few exceptions will get fired, identified, terminated soon enough. So if you don't want to live through all that, if you want a better future for your children, wow, it's like a cloud of gnats I just walked through, and they're following me around. If you want a better future for your children, you know, it's a logical choice. And going down with a ship, dying in a system, fighting a system, or not being able to understand why you can't succeed in a system where you're working like madman, you can't ever get out of debts, you're always under threat of everything. It's not because you're inept. It's because the system's made that way. The system's made to make sure you stay down and the ultra-rich get richer. It's that simple. And nobody's going to change that system, short of some massive revolution. And that ain't coming either. So, you stick around there. That's the future for you, your children, your grandchildren. Or you can make the same decision your parents or grandparents or your ancestors made and said, you know, this system can't be fixed. It's not worth it. I'm leaving. And pack up your stuff. Pack up your family and kids and move on. That's just the way it is. Your choice. Well, now you've seen the reasons, just a few of the reasons, why it's better to be here than to be over there. God bless.